Hey guys, it's TJ Code Mortar back from the Sabbatical vlog update.
Winning.
Now, last week I mentioned we were going to talk about Google AdMob and monetization of mobile apps, but first I wanted to show off a pretty sweet service from Unity itself. It's called Unity Cloud Build, and if you're familiar with any kind of continuous integration services, auto deployment services, things like Envoyer for Laravel, anything like that, it's along those lines. You can connect it to a Git repository or other version control repository and set up a few configurations, and you can have it automatically build your apps for you so that your poor little MacBook isn't trying to build an Android app, an iOS app, and a web app all at the same time. So I'm just going to hop in and walk you through it, and then we'll hop back out.
Wow, winning.
All right, so here we have our same Ninja Fighter game that we saw a week or two ago. Not much has changed. There is one thing that's been added that I'll show off here, which is this little bit of compiler directive code. So, I mean, by looking at it, you can probably guess roughly what it's going to do. But basically what's happening is if the compiler is compiling for the Unity editor, which is while I'm working on my computer, it's going to set this Boolean mobile equal to false. If the compiler is set to Unity Android or Unity iPhone, it's going to set this mobile value to true, and in all other cases it's going to set to false. So when I'm building it for WebGL, if I was building it for, say, Mac OS or for Nintendo Switch, in all those cases it would be set to false. It's only going to be set to true in Android and iPhone. And this is just used basically to enable and disable the on-screen controls. So we don't want to have the joystick and the buttons on the screen if you're playing it in a web browser. So if we were going to compile this for Android and for a web browser, I'm going to have to go File, Build Settings, and I'm currently set up for deploying to Android, which is fine. I'm going to hit Build, and that's going to ask me where to save the APK. Going to ask me to fill in a couple of things, and then that's going to churn for, and I tried this personally with this game specifically, and it was churning for over an hour trying to compile this game just for Android, and that's not including a WebGL version. And that's when I discovered Unity's Cloud Build platform. So instead of doing that, what we can do is we can use version control. In this case, I'm using Git, and you can see here I'm in my project directory, I'm on my master branch, on my I only have the one remote origin. Everything's up to date, so it's all ready to go. So what's going to happen is I'm going to commit this code, push it up, and the Unity Cloud platform is then going to build the APK. It's going to build a WebGL, and if I wanted it to, it would do iPhone, it would do native Mac OS, native Windows, native Linux. There's a whole bunch of options that we'll see in a minute. So here we are in the Unity Developer online service. You can see here I have a couple of projects here, both the Ninja Fighter game, one Android and one web. So the compiler directive code that I showed earlier, previously I didn't have that in there, so I actually had to have two separate branches. That's why you also saw that I had an Android branch and a web branch. So these are kind of, these are deprecated now. I moved on to having a separate or a single project for both platforms. And of course, like I said, it could support many platforms. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a project. I'm going to give it a name. So we'll call this one Ninja Fighter Multi-Platform. And right off the bat, we have lots of charts and graphs and analytics and ads and things like that. We're going to jump into Cloud Build. And from here, nothing has been set up yet, so let's add some SCM information, source control management. So first thing I'm going to need is my server URL. So for that, I can go to my GitLab account. I can copy this URL from here, paste it in. It automatically detects that the source control type is Git, but as you can see, it also supports SVN, Perforce, Mercurial. So next we'll move on. So next it wants us to add this SSH key to our Git repository to allow Unity access to our Git repo. I'm just going to grab this SSH key and come over here to my GitLab account, add my SSH key, and we'll call this Unity Cloud Build. So that's been added, so we can come back here. We'll hit next, and it has seen that we did indeed add the key, so it is able to access our project. So we'll select Android first. So we have to set these up one at a time, but we'll select Android first. We'll leave the label default. The branch is going to be master branch. I built this using Unity 5.6.1. There's a 5.6.2 as well, which will also be compatible. We have auto build turned on, so it will check our Git repo periodically, and when it finds changes, it will pull and it will automatically do our build again. So move on next to the credentials. So with an Android application, there's a couple of things that you have to provide. So you need a bundle ID. So if you've ever got really nitty-gritty into your Android device, you'll see that every application is identified by, typically it's com.something. Oftentimes it's com.companyname.application So we'll do com.codemortar.ninjafighter. These credentials, we need these credentials if we actually want to submit to the Google Play Store. That's not what we're doing right now. So we'll just use the auto-generated debug key store, which is why you need to install this application through alternate methods besides just downloading it from the Play Store. So that's it. We've set up our Android build, and it's going to get started here in just a moment. We'll give it a refresh to see and we can see now that the status is that it's been waiting for 8 seconds. This will update every few seconds. But while that's waiting, so we're in a queue right now. We have you can see very small, but you can see we have a Personal Plus account, which means we get a slightly higher priority over those people who aren't paying anything for the service, but big corporations and big companies that are using this professionally, they're getting priority over us. So the wait time typically, from my experience, has been anywhere from 2 to 15 minutes, and the build time, obviously it's application specific, but anywhere from 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes. And now while our Android build is waiting and queued up, we can start another build for WebGL. So come here to the config tab, we select setup new target, and it takes us back, and it's the exact same process as before. So you can see here some of the other options that we kind of blew by before, but 32 and 64-bit OS X, Universal OS X, 32 and 64-bit Windows, 32, 64, and Universal Linux, iOS. You'll see that there's Web Player and WebGL. So Web Player is the older pre-WebGL version. So WebGL is much better performance, and in fact, the Web Player is only compatible for Unity version, I think back to 5.3, so 5.6 isn't even compatible with the Web Player because it's been deprecated and replaced with WebGL. So we'll select WebGL. Again, it's pulling the branches. We'll select master. And again, we're going to select 5.6, auto build on. And that's pretty much it. Now, again, because we're a low paying customer, we only get to run one build at a time. So this Android build is going to run for, like I said, it's probably going to be a half an hour or so before this is done, and then it'll move on to the WebGL build. And then both of those should be done. We'll be able to download our APK. We'll be able to download a zip of our WebGL. We'll be able to check all that stuff out in half hour, 45 minutes. So we'll hop back in then.
Winning.
All right, so we're back. As you can see, both the Android build and the WebGL build did finish. They both took about a half an hour each. Of course, one can't start until the previous one finishes. You'll see that I do have an error here and a cancellation, so I canceled the WebGL after catching the Android error. And the issue was a specific shader that I was using in 5.6.1, which is what I'm running locally, is not compatible with 5.6.2, which is what was originally configured. It was the latest version of 5.6, which is 5.6.2. So simply went in and specified a more specific version of 5.6.1, rebuilt, and everything works fine. So as you can see, we got download APK, where we can download the APK binary. We can play it online with the WebGL version, or we can download a zip of the WebGL version. That's pretty much it for this one, guys, but I will be back later in the week to talk more about Google AdMob and monetization of mobile apps. Until next time.
Winning. 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 Winning.